And now, our feature presentation.
Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from, only that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born. For a time, we lived in harmony. But like all great power, some wanted it for good, others for evil. And so began the war. A war that ravaged our planet until it was consumed by death. And the cube was lost to the far reaches of space. We scattered across the galaxy, hoping to find it and rebuild our home, searching every star, every world. And just when all hope seemed lost, message of a new discovery drew us to an unknown planet called Earth.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek, and you're sort of listening to a combiner version of Future Imperfect, which is our show where we talk about sci-fi, Loose Cannon, the show where we talk almost exclusively about movies, and the old school Twig topic show of All Form the Head. This is... I'm not quite sure what we're going to call this just yet, but either way, this is our Twig Transformer special, and this is something that I've been looking forward to putting together since I saw Rise of the Beasts a couple of weeks ago. I went to go see it again last night, and we're also going to be talking about something we got sent from Paramount Home Entertainment, which is the Steelbook collection of all the Transformers movies on 4K. But I'm not alone, as I... Power links combine here with the rest of the TWIG crew, forming the Canadian contingent of this combiner.
It's JT from Saskatoon, and if I were a Transformer, I'd be named Leadfoot, and I would be a triple changer going from a tow truck to a tank.
Very nice. And then also forming the American part of this, basically our Target Master combined weapons expert on movies.
It's Ken from This Anime, and I have no Transformers reference to put here.
I was thinking about this last night when I was in the theater. Like, if I had to be something, what would I be? And I thought about a television broadcast truck and maybe calling myself Frequency or Wavelength.
Yeah.
So I thought about that last night.
Because I was thinking about this last night watching the first Bay film as, kind of research, kind of, bring the memories back to the surface. And there's this, I'm going to say long running because it's been going for about 5 years now, YouTube series called Transformers The Basics by this guy, Chuck McFeely. I believe he's out of Ireland. And he does these like 5 to 13 minute little kind of info dump videos based on a specific aspect of Transformers mythology. And I forget exactly which one it was, but it says, put in the comments, like, what would you be if you were a Transformer? And that's, without even thinking, I just nailed that out. It was like, my name would be Leadfoot. I'd be a triple changer. And then I mentioned that in a Facebook chat, and then I said, I dare to suggest that Grimlock should be anything other than a T-Rex. And my friend, well, what would he be? He was like, he would be a monster truck, duh.
Yeah. That makes an awful lot of sense.
But yeah.
Just to kind of give you guys some initial thoughts up front here for this. So, like I said, because I've been watching these movies on 4K for the better part of a week or two here at the TWIG Studios. Like I said, so Paramount Home Entertainment sent me over the huge Steelbook box set for this. So I just want to talk about that for just a couple of seconds here. So ultimately, this is kind of a repack of everything that has been seen previously in 4K. So there isn't anything really special here except packaging, which is actually quite the upgrade. I'm actually a big fan of when Steelbooks are done right when it comes to artwork. I'm really impressed. I'd say probably my favorite one out of this entire collection is Dark of the, or not, yeah, it's Dark of the Moons. I think there's my boy Shockwave on there, and he's one of my favorite Decepticons. Everything else has, there's like Optimus, there's a Megatron one. Some of them will have an Autobot symbol or a Decepticon logo on the back. And then the movies themselves, like I said, they're pretty much just repacks of like everything else. You do get a digital code for this, but it is nice seeing these things in 4K. And the reason I say that is now I can see a lot of what was happening that I missed in the theater since 2007. You don't realize how nice the Bayverse designs are until you can actually see what the hell's happening. And I know these movies get a lot of flack for like shaky cam, but I found in 4K, you're seeing a lot more of the mechanical detail. Now, some of the CG in these movies is really rough, especially when it comes to certain close-ups. Unless it's a hero shot of Optimus, Megatron, or Bumblebee, every other character, it kind of depends. There were some shots, and I'm pretty sure Age of Extinction with, I think it was Brains, where he just looked terrible. But what are you going to do? Ultimately, though, you're still getting the same special features out of this set, which is incredibly informative if you're a Transformers fan. I think Bumblebee has some of the best, just because you get to see, hey, who's that Pokemon, so to speak, with it. And like, hey, this is B-Vision. And, John Cena's awesome. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the Transformers 6-movie Steelbook collection is really worth it. If you haven't got these movies on 4K yet, then this is a really good reason to get the best possible packaging. Steelbooks look amazing. And one of the nicest things that came in this set, which I really didn't expect, they have this large silver Autobot decal. I've applied that to my wheelchair. I've put clear coat over it, so now it won't get, scuffed up by the weather. So I'm wearing my Autobot pride each and every day. So now that I've talked about the box set, we're going to talk about the movies here on the show as kind of just a way to look at the franchise. And then I kind of want to talk about what the franchise is kind of doing with itself now, because literally as we're recording it this week, the new comic book series has finally been announced, who's going to be in it, who's doing it, and it comes out in October. Renegade Game Studio sent me a bunch of really cool Transformer stuff, and Hasbro has been giving us stuff pretty consistently. I actually got a pretty big package the other day, so I'll talk a little bit about that, and you guys can kind of jump in on that. And so without any further ado, guys, I guess I'm going to start with probably Ken. When did you first see the Transformers movie from 2007? What was your experience there?
So I saw the first Transformers. This was 2007, so I definitely saw it in theaters, because at that point I was still a big theater goer even then. But I was just like, yeah, no, that's fun. It was just kind of okay. I wasn't really as engaged with the movie as much as older fans, and like my connection with Transformers is much more Beast Wars and some of the early 2000s era. The Robots in Disguise series that was like early 2000s.
Yeah, so that would have been Robots in Disguise, Armada, basically the Unicron trilogy.
That era.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That era. And other than that, like, I didn't hate this. I didn't hate the first film. I thought it was just fine. I think there were a couple of goofy bits that were just like, I'm not a big fan of the humor. But
mostly the mother.
Yeah.
Mostly the mother. The parent, the Witwicky's parents were just kind of,
we're wacky.
Oh,
You know, Kevin Dunn as quote unquote spark plug. he was never my favorite human character, but he wasn't atrocious the way the mother was, or the dog that was humping the other dog. Like, why?
Because Mojo.
Because Michael Bay, someone lied to Michael Bay saying his humor's funny, and he's rolled with it the rest of his life.
Yes, I am brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, there, JT. What about you? First experience.
Well, with this movie was, the lead up to it, starting in 2006 with that. I always love a good teaser trailer. And if we remember that first teaser trailer about, it's like the Mars rover and this protoform-esque transformer like crushes it, which later I think in either the novelization or the comic was said to be Starscream. I was intrigued. I'm a huge Michael Bay fan at this point. I still am. I'm just don't think the man walks on water the way he does. And I really enjoyed this first film. It's not everything I've ever wanted from a Transformers film, but it was such a revelation to see these characters for the first time in live action. And I got into so many wonderful nerd arguments with friends when this is like, well, why don't they look like the G1? Like the boxy guys, is like, they're alien robots from another planet. Why would they look like they're cosplaying as cartoon characters? I dug the mention in production with Michael Bay and some of the designers that, the Transformers are all designed to look like that because the conservation of mass. So like Optimus is that big and Jazz is that big because they're, alternate modes. I really dug that. And this first film, like at the time when I was getting hardcore into collecting DVDs, I went out. This is the only steel case Transformers set that I own is for this first movie when it first came out, like late 2007, 2008, like that, because I do love this film. When I say it's the least offensive, I don't mean in terms of the story or anything. It's just me as a Transformers fan, as a man who suffered one of his first of many emotional traumas as a child, seeing the original 86 film in theaters. I love this movie. This is my favorite out of the original 5, because I have words about the newest 2 movies and they are very positive. We'll get to that when we get to that.
All right. And as for myself, again, much like JT, I was really intrigued by the trailer that came out for this. I wanted more. I remember getting, I know I bought the movie's novelization. I'm pretty sure that I read it. Excuse me. I remember going to the theater with Blair and some of the other Twig crew from way back in the day, and it was just magical. I saw this at the Niagara Falls Theater, and it was one of the nicest theaters I'd been in at that time, because before that I'd only lived in Owen Sound, and we had like this little rinky-dink theater, which wasn't the greatest, but it was cool to see it in like a really nice theater with all my friends, and me and Blair had only been together for a couple of months at that point. And something that happened later, which was kind of a cute story. So, as you guys know, the marketing for this movie was absolutely huge. And my birthday was in October. So, this is about the time the movie's coming out on the home media. Now, Microsoft at that point was trying to make HD DVD a thing. And when we first started getting some of our connections at TWIG early on, I remember getting an HD DVD drive from Microsoft, and Paramount sent me the HD DVD version of Transformers. And I always thought that was kind of neat. But the thing that I remember most about the first movie is Hasbro had put out this Optimus Prime voice changer mask. And I really, really wanted it. So Blair, being the good girlfriend she was at the time, went out and bought it for me for my birthday. And she wrapped it all up, and she was so proud of herself. And she brings out the present. She's like, "Hey, Michael, do you know what it is?" And I'm thinking, is that an Optimus Prime voice changer helmet? Just the color just drains out of her face. She's like, "Man, Mike, fuck you. How did you know?" I'm like, I'm a toy dork. I mean,
Who are you talking to, woman?
I was like, if you'd showed me the UPC code, I could have told you if it was American or Canadian packaging. She's like, I hate you. I hate you so much. Um, so the first movie, Transformers, is sort of setting the stage for the rest of the Bayverse. And I think in a lot of ways, it does a lot of things right. Some of the humor is a little bit, as we've mentioned with the mom and the dad, a little off-putting. I mean, they're Disney Channel wacky is how I would describe them.
Yeah.
Obnoxious.
Yeah, like these characters were totally put in there by a focus group. I completely believe that. The Autobots that come to Earth are Jazz, Ratchet, Ironhide, Bumblebee, and obviously Optimus. The Decepticons, really weird lineup of guys. Like they've got a Combaticon, a Constructicon, only in name, I might add, and they constantly screw up on certain names.
Yeah, actually, two Combaticons, because Blackout was that helicopter that attacks the military base in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Scorponok, who's like a Laserbeak style transformer to him because he just jumps off and like tunnels away.
Yeah, he's basically like a drone, which is, okay, fine. I'm willing to live with that. And Michael Bay loves this Scorpion design to death because it just shows up a lot in this franchise. I guess it kind of makes sense, but and then there's Bone Crusher. They call the character in 2 points. They call him Devastator, but he's meant to be called Brawl. He's the tank. You see Starscream, who's the F-22 Raptor, Barricade, which is the cop car, which I think is the best Decepticon design in the entire movie. And Megatron, Cybertronian, Jet, because reasons. And long story short, it basically, they're looking for this thing called the All-Spark, which is the thing into which all Transformer life kind of sprung from. And Megatron's been crash landed on Earth since the 1800s. He was looking for the cube, but got crashed. He got frozen in the ice. So this government organization called Sector 7's been holding him since then at the Hoover Dam, along with the All-Spark, because what a good idea this has turned out to be. And Sam is just kind of... Thanks, Ayla. Sorry, Ayla jumped on something and she changed my input. So hopefully you didn't lose any of my voice there. And I don't know. Let's see what else happens. Ken, help me out here.
I mean, honestly, that's about it. We get the fact that we get the wiki connection where his I think it's his grandfather.
Yeah.
Or
found
great-grandfather.
His grandfather found Megatron in the ice, and was it the cube that
No, it was Megatron saw him and then scanned him, but it went through his glasses first or something.
Yeah,
overloaded
like
his mind with information, so he came back all crazy, like, here there'll be dragons, kind of crazy. And he's in an asylum for the rest of his days.
Yeah. I mean, the first movie, I think it actually did a pretty good job of introducing all the characters to everybody, although not everybody really gets a moment to shine. I mean, this is the Bumblebee show, realistically. Optimus he's there, but not as involved as I thought.
You can tell Bay likes Bumblebee.
Which
a lot.
Which, it's weird. When I was watching all 5 of the original, whatever you'd call that, I got to thinking Bumblebee's role gets reduced more and more with each movie. In he was he's the mascot of the franchise. I think he gets the most toys of any character from the Bayverse movies, but especially in the last 2, he's really relegated to just, hi, remember me?
Well, I mean, he's the
I
Kid
think
Appeal
that's
character.
I think that's also probably because of the change in writers, and then also the fact that, like, probably the writers are going, well, audiences are probably going to be sick of us shoving Bumblebee down everyone's throats.
Yeah. I'd say in terms of how friendly the movie is to the lore, it's not bad. I was really initially against the whole Allspark thing, but as I've been reading the IDW comics over the last couple of months, I've really softened on a lot of things. But as I watch these movies, I can see where they're pulling stuff from the comics, but they don't quite do it right. Like that, I feel like that's definitely someone at the studio level saying, "Hey, this is what's happening in the comics and other media right now to draw some more eyeballs in. Could we put XYZ into this?"
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if I may, Mike.
yeah, of course.
For a little bit of backstory for the behind the scenes of the franchise, like the Transformers franchise as a whole, this is around a time where Hasbro made this concerted effort to streamline various aspects of the mythology. I mean, when you get with the Cube, for example, that was created to be the new kind of catch-all origin of the like it would be explained, this is, a piece of Transformer God that, from which all life sprang forth. And this is going past, the Primus and Unicron origin, or from the animated series that, they were created by the Quintessons as a product line sort of thing. And this bled into the various pieces of Transformers animated media that had a version of the Allspark, like in Transformers Animated, Prime, even most recently as Transformers Cyberverse. And it's not that they wanted to ignore Primus and Unicron, it's just, given it's a very American, this series of movies is very American based, and trying to introduce the concept of Robo Jesus and Robotic Devil in Primus and Unicron, I think would have taken way too much work than they were necessarily going to give it. So this is just a nice kind of compromise in order to streamline the story and give them that MacGuffin to fight over.
Yeah, like I kind of didn't mind it. Like, just it's easy enough for people to grasp. It's gives high stakes. Shia LaBeouf in this movie, I don't mind him as Spike Witwicky, because Sam, whatever, he is meant to be Spike. I'll take it. He's not that bad. Even Megan Fox watching this, I will go to bat for her for this.
Yeah, no, she knows what her role is, and she plays it very well.
Yeah, like,
and she has shown in like future productions that she's been a part of that she can definitely play she definitely plays to the role.
Yeah, like, I feel like most of the negative attention around her just came from her having that obvious, like, sex appeal to that Maxim magazine audience. But I gotta say, like, it's not like she decided the shooting schedule or deciding the shots that, like, hey, we're gonna focus on her ass today, like, or I'm gonna walk all sexy. Like, that's what you were paid to do. Like, so back off a little bit.
It's not like she was a damsel in the movie either. Like, she's got the mechanical skill. She has that bit, I'll drive, you shoot, where she's got like the bisected Bumblebee strapped to a tow truck, and Bees just like roll out, and he just starts nailing it as she's like gunning through traffic like that. And which is to say, she only lasts 2 films in the series because she makes the Michael Bay Hitler comment that, gets her ejected from the franchise after the second one, sadly. And I really did like her character of Michaela in these films. Like, she's smart, she's tough, she's sexy, but it's not a overblown cheesecakey kind of sexy. It's Megan Fox, like, duh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm hot and that's okay, sort of thing. And I'm trying to think, I think one of my biggest problems I had with the first movie is how quickly they killed Jazz, and Jazz was a very important character in the original G1 franchise. Scatman Carruthers voiced him, wonderfully remembered through the franchise, and Megatron literally is like, "Yo, you want a piece of me? No, I want two."
Yeah, he killed Eddie Winslow because he's voiced by Darius McCrary from Family Matters.
Yeah, and it was like I was like, really? And my only other part is it feels like when Megatron gives Starscream a little bit of shit, he's like, you failed me again, Starscream. Like, okay, unless you're a hardcore G1 fan, you're not really gonna know what that's kind of hinting at. So I know that was very, very fan servicey. But like, okay, sure, whatever. And the other Decepticons just kind of get their asses kicked pretty spectacular. Like Bone Crusher Optimus straight up executes. I think the Nest forces no, they're not Nest yet. Josh Dumel,
and Tyrese Gibson.
And Tyrese Gibson. So the dude bro military guys kill Brawl or Devastator, whatever the hell they call him, scene the scene. And, Barricade just disappears.
Yeah, and don't forget part of the human team is Zach Ward, a.k.a. Scott Farkas from A Christmas Story.
I think he gets killed by Scorponok, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, he gets straight up just like, hey, what's that in your chest? Gah! And I read there was plans for the humans, all the human cast to survive. Like when I say human cast, I mean the special ops team there, because like you said, you had Dumal, you had Tyrese, you even got what's his name, Amari Nolasco, who everyone knows is a Sucre from Prison Break, is my favorite character on that show. Like they were supposed to come back in the sequel and be like the kind of the human cast going forward and all that. And I mistook him when listening. It's Charlie Adler is the voice actor that did Starscream in that. I thought it was Steve Bloom. And I was like, oh yeah, he got his start here. No, that didn't come until later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
Like, and there was I think this was either in the comic or it was in the novelization. There's a scene where they actually show what happens to Barricade when they're on the freeway chase with like Bone Crusher. Ironhide runs Barricade off the road and he like gets all smashed up because he hits like a side or something.
Like the one of the pillars, yeah, and he doesn't come back until the third movie. Yeah,
and then he's also in The Last Night. That's the same character. I was like, but he gets a new redesign as his cop car. I was really hoping the cop car, when I saw the first set pictures for this, I'm like, please be Prowl. That's my favorite Transformer. And then you see the side of the cop car to punish and enslave, which, again, that's a top tier alt mode. And that's, I think, the best alt mode from the Decepticons point of view. I mean, I think the F-22 Raptor, you just kind of give a pass, like, yeah, it's a jet, it's cool, but I think the cop car, the punish and enslave is a nice little nod to how evil the Decepticons are.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. What did you guys think of the design of Optimus Prime, considering what we've all been kind of used to?
I think it was pretty not reminiscent, it's an R word, but it's I think it works for Optimus, again, going back to, like I said, how their size is denoted by, all the parts that would go into this human vehicle. I mean, I'm a huge fan of, the G1, like, cab over engine style truck that he was. I was a big fan of when the first time he turned into a fire engine in, like, RID 2001. But the movie versions of like the Peterbilt 379 that they use in this one, it's just chef's kiss. Because I mean, all the Transformer alternate forms, like they all like go through a wax and polish before they're on camera, because they are always impossibly clean, and I appreciate that. One of my biggest gripes with an alternate form in this film was like, I'm a G1 fan. I want Ironhide as his OG van, but then the GMC top kick rolls on screen and I'm like, fuck it, fuck the van, I want this vehicle now.
Yeah, like I think all the Autobots got really nice alt modes. Like, I think one of Blair's family members at the time actually had Jazz, like not the actual screen used car, but they had the same model of car. Bumblebee as a Camaro, that was a nice update to the design, I thought. And then I found out later in the comics, they adapted the Bayverse design to go into the comics. And I'm thinking, you know what? I kind of don't mind that. That's fine with me. And
yeah, I think I think the decision to kind of like, all right, we're gonna use actual cars as the basis for all of the forms is just like, okay, that makes sense.
And you gotta wonder,
if you're going to modernize Transformers, that makes sense.
yeah, and you also got to wonder what the contract negotiations were with a bunch of these car manufacturers. Like, you know, we got Chevrolet, GMC, Pontiac, Peterbilt, all these guys, because they're all like, well, you know, my car should be up front because it's a hero car, or no, my car should be out front because it's a hero car. And you know, it's like when
every single one of them got commercials out of it.
Oh yeah, but I'm just wondering
in terms of they got their car in the movie, and then they also got the chance to shoot commercials. I think that was kind of the main deal.
Oh yeah,
was like you get to shoot a commercial for your car on the set.
Yeah, and then
in conjunction with the movie. So
like the Pontiac Solstice, which is the alt form of Jazz. I remember that was around the time this car was coming out. It was making a big splash to the point that there was a Chuck Dixon written DC comic miniseries called Rush City, where this vigilante has a tricked out Solstice that he tears around NYC. And so, you know, Transformers, if nothing, is a marketing machine. And just one final thing, my favorite human in this film, besides Megan Fox, the late great king of motherfucking comedy, Bernie Mac as Bobby Bolivia.
Yeah, that was a nice little fun thing, and it would not be surprised, or it really wouldn't surprise me if his dialogue was improvised, just because it does have that Bernie Mac kind of flair to it.
Yeah, because I mean, you had the Bernie Mac show at the time, and when they used that, there's a mystical bond between man and machine in the promos for the Bumblebee film. Like, there was a tear in my eye because I miss my Uncle Bobby. Like, you know, this is a few years removed, but early 2000s, I lived with my grandmother for a bit while I was in broadcast school, and we kind of bonded because I like that Bernie. He's funny, and I just looked at did my grandma just admit to being a fan of the King of Comedy? Holy shit. But
now,
yeah.
I did think about something, and this kind of, because JT, you're a G1 fan, you know the actual animated series like me. Think about this. There is a human character in the first movie who helps the CIA analyst, who I can't even remember her name if she's even kind of given one. And she goes to Anthony Anderson's character. Do you not think that should have been Chip Chase?
You know what? Yes. Rachel Taylor's the actress. Maggie is her character. Anthony Anderson, you know, juice, Grandma. You know, I ate the whole plate. Like, he was brought in strictly as comic relief, and I love it. But yeah, I think he could have been called Chip Chase. Although then they would have had something like constantly have him eating potato chips, you know, because these movie series,
like it's always right on the nose, so to speak, with all their kind of humor. I guess we should probably move on to Revenge of the Fallen, and I'm going to be an outlier here. I'm actually a defender of this movie now. After watching the entire 5 movies, everyone used to say, oh, Revenge of the Fallen's the worst. Oh, it is not. Now, this movie's not great.
It's not anymore.
But at the same time, it does a lot of interesting things, but you start to see what I'm calling the DC effect here. And what I mean by it is trying to take the lore that's been established with one movie. You've got one, but now you're trying to cram all the Marvel universe cinema building shit into it. Because Revenge of the Fallen, long story short, basically deals with the resurrection of one of the original Transformers, one of the original Primes being called back, and he's known as the Fallen, or the first Decepticon, which from a lore perspective, that's not correct either. But and they're trying to use this energon collector that the Cybertronians invented that gathers energon from exploding stars. There's a thing stuck on Earth that just happens to be inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Megatron needs the Matrix of Leadership to activate it to help the Fallen resurrect his army and conquer the universe, blah, blah, blah. Now, that being said, Sam and Michaela are together officially now. Sam's taking off to college, and this is where I noticed problem number one in this thing. What is Sam going to college for? He doesn't seem particularly academic to me.
Yeah, but they got that huge payout to keep quiet from the government after the events of the first film. So I'm going to guess it has something to do with, I want to say aeronautics or whatever, because you see at one point he's attending this class where the professor is Rainn Wilson, who is clearly throwing down with half the females in his class.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's something to do with that, because maybe it's just he's inspired by the Transformers and they're from another planet, outer space. Who knows? And it's true. And like the first film, this one, he's not shown to be the brightest bulb in the sky.
And yet he's in clearly an Ivy League school. And then
out.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But it's so weird because even the father's like, what's this look like? $40,000 a year. First off, you Americans pay an insane amount for your schooling.
Oh, yes.
Like, I think even here, when I go to university next year, I think it's like $8,000 a semester, maybe. But
here's the thing:
40,
I went to a state college, and it was still pretty expensive.
That's nuts, man. That's why education should be free for all. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Can I get on a soapbox for a second?
You totally can.
Okay. Two things mostly that I do not like in this film. One, the mother, because hey, she was such a huge character. Let's get her stoned on a college campus.
Yeah, that was focus grouped for sure.
And I don't mean it's stupid, like it's like mentally, it's just like it's so forced and obnoxious and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. The other thing is look, I am, for those that don't know, I am a straight white male. According to the internet, my face is the face of the enemy. And I hated the, I guess, cultural appropriation in this movie. Like
you see from Mudflap, yeah,
not just Skids and I got words
there's
about
more than that,
motherfuckers. But no, it's just the way they treat cultures. Like, this is where you really see Michael Bay's raging boner for America and its military in this movie. Because if you're not American and you're not in the military, you are not treated very kindly, ever.
Although I seem to recall a behind the scenes thing, because when they wanted to shoot over with the pyramids, like when they wanted to shoot in the Middle East, they were only granted permission if they put one of the, I think it's the Jordanian Air Force in the movie. They get immediately shot down.
Yeah.
But as long as they survived and Agent Simmons thanks them, they're like, okay, cool, you can shoot here as long as you make us look cool.
Sorry, so three things, like the cultural, I guess cultural disrespect. Yeah, Skids and Mudflap, where one of those characters is actually voiced by a black man, and
yes,
Skids and Mudflap got these big monkey ears and gold teeth, and they were educated by the internet, and for some reason, this was okay for the censors.
Yeah, like, actually, although that being said, to speak about Skids and Mudflap, something that I do like those characters, they're obviously meant to be the comic relief, for kids characters. I like their design. And what I mean by that is when they first appear in the movie, when they're hunting Decepticons with Nest, they're an ice cream truck and they're a duocon. So they're two separate robots that form one vehicle mode,
See, I
which I thought was really
that.
cool.
Yeah, and that reminded me of the Micromaster combiners from late in the original toy run where,
Hmm.
you had these two Autobot or Decepticon. Essentially, these were the original mini-cons that could form one vehicle and you create all sorts of nifty combinations. And the other thing that really bothered me in this film, oh God, where do I begin?
The Devastator.
The
Yes,
Devastator
yeah,
under the
I am
balls
directly beneath
joke.
the enemy's scrotum. Like, okay, first of all, not the design of Devastator. Okay, it looks like this horrible living metal gestalt. It's going to eat your soul. I dug that design,
Yeah.
but it's everything other than design. It's you bastardize my favorite G1 combiner.
You know
Like,
what's funny? When you see this movie in 4K, you really appreciate the Devastator design because,
Oh
like
yeah,
you,
no.
JT, I hated it for years, but now that I can see it clearly, it's maybe not as egregious as I thought. Plus, there is a Hasbro toy like in the Studio series, which is the collector, not masterpiece grade for stuff, but one step below that, where they're basically like 40, $50 a figure to build Devastator. It's actually pretty impressive to see, but I felt like he maybe the actually I just had a thought. You realize the Decepticons are the only people who really get combiners in the entire series?
Yep.
Yeah,
mhm.
huh. Yeah, just yeah, sorry JT, but yeah, it's like
No, it's. I mean, I as soon as Jetfire popped up, and this thing is this old crotchety Decepticon who turns into an SR-71 Blackbird. It's like we're gonna get the aerial bots. We're not getting the aerial bots.
yeah, like I was so excited to see Jetfire again, one of my favorite Transformers from G1. Wonderful design, wicked alt mode, but then he's an old, angry Scottish man. But
Yeah,
okay, sure.
and I do want to say while there are things that I very much abhor about this movie, I'm not quite at Mike's level, folks. That I'm going to just defend this movie, but I have softened my opinion of it over the years. This by far is not the worst movie in the franchise. Oh, brother, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think one of the things I liked about this is Sam is trying to he's looking for purpose because clearly like he's gone off to college, he's trying to better himself presumably, but when he has to save Optimus to resurrect him with the matrix of leadership, I started to think about this from in terms of the hero's journey. Basically, what is he learning
Right.
along the way? And I think this is probably the movie where I think he does the most to make things right. Like originally, he
Yeah.
doesn't want it to be his problem. He's off at college, and then Optimus gives him the speech of "Destiny rarely calls upon us in an hour of our choosing." And yeah, that's a big foreshadow, but I think I like what Sam does with this. How he really wants
Mm.
to help to make sure things like he has to get Optimus back. You're saving the world on the grandest scale because you're in essence saving the solar system. And I don't
Yeah.
know, like there are just parts about this I really, really, really like. I like the fact they brought in RC. Why Sideswipe is silver and not red? Okay, sure. I'll bite on that one.
Yeah, I mean, personally, this is the movie that I remember most fondly seeing in theaters, specifically because I saw it with my best buddy, who is still my best buddy for the last 15, 20 years at this point. And had we walked out. We enjoyed the movie. Like we sat in the movie, we were enjoying ourselves. We walked out of the theater and we go, that was kind of trashy. And we all kind of agreed, yeah, that was kind of trashy. But like it was still an enjoyable watch. So to me, this is like the perfect 3 out of 5 star movie. This is just kind of like, it's watchable, but I don't think it's a good movie.
Yeah, like this is the definition of Transformers the ride, because it just never really kind of lets up. One thing
I am gonna say the one thing that I take from this movie that I still to this day think is the best part is the Linkin Park song.
Yeah,
Or no, this is New Divide.
This is New Divide.
Which that's something I guess we probably should have mentioned early on. Like the first 3 movies have really good Linkin Park songs. I'm not sure whether they did the other 2. I think they did, but
they did the first 3 and then that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, first one's What I've Done, part 2's New Divide, and it's
Iridescent or something.
Iridescence, yeah.
Yeah, which that's my least favorite. But yeah, like the Linkin Park songs that come out, like I can't hear What I've Done without hearing Peter Cullen in my ear as well.
For me, it's New Divide, simply because it's just like that was one of those that was like one of the first songs I bought on iTunes.
I remember that song really hitting radio play hard. I think I was still in broadcast school at that point. I was just no way, or was I in PR school? Either way, I remember going into one of the radio stations and that song being in very heavy rotation. And I think that's when Linkin Park, they were popular. Yeah, they were getting a lot of radio play, but that's where they crossed over into a
mainstream.
Different, like super mainstream, because like you could hear them on top 40 stations, but even adult contemporary stuff where like you would get not New Divide, but you would get What I've Done, which was a big change from a lot of like radio station formats, I think. So
and I think I think honestly, out of the 3 songs that they've done, New Divide has the most resonance with like people my age, like 100%. Like this out of the 3 songs, this was the one that connected with everyone. Like when the Battle Angel Alita trailer dropped and they did that slow version of New Divide, that song was immediately one of the top downloaded songs.
Man, I need to see that trailer with that. I don't recall that at all.
They changed the vocal. It's a female vocal cover, and it's a slow version of it.
That's cool.
It's a really good trailer.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find that after we're kind of done recording here. I guess another good thing I could say about Revenge of the Fallen is the Pretender, Alice. For those of you that don't know, a Pretender is a Transformer that hides inside of an organic shell. So it's not quite a Beast Wars thing, because that's just their alt mode is organic. Whereas here, the shell is literally a person. But here they kind of do the Bayverse version of it. And she's this attractive young woman who seduces Sam and then tries to kill him with her tongue. The character doesn't appear in any other Transformers media. As far as I know, it's just the character's just called Alice. And I don't know. I love this design of this of this monster. I just thought it was so cool.
Okay, it's good you clarified that, because I thought you were going to talk about the actress for a second.
Well, she is incredibly gorgeous too, but I love the idea of the Decepticons using the Pretender technology. Like that, I feel was a missed opportunity. Like if they'd put more Pretenders, like they could have infiltrated wherever they wanted to. Like, I don't know. Again, I feel like that's maybe a missed opportunity.
It's a one-off idea that could have been more.
Yeah, exactly. Like ultimately, if the Pretender had worked with Soundwave and Ravage, maybe there could have been something cool there where they infiltrate the CIA or something. Which, for some reason, Soundwave, yes, being voiced by Frank Welker, good job, but for some reason he sounds like Dr. Claw, which
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the voice work. Peter Cullen being probably the only exception to the rule. They voice modulate the crap out of everyone.
yeah, and it just never sounds good. And I remember Hugo Weaving, because we haven't even mentioned who some of these other actors are. He plays Megatron. I remember he did an interview.
One only.
No, he did.
No, he did it for the first 3, I think.
Yep, and
He's credited for the first 3 at least.
Yep, and then it became Welker for the last 2. Yeah, like Hugo Weaving had said he can't remember much of what he did other than shout because the movies were so dispassionate. Although it's weird looking at Hugo Weaving's Megatron versus Frank Welker's Galvatron Megatron for the last 2. I think I like Weaving better. And I know that's blasphemy because Welker is Megatron, but they don't write him like G1 Megatron. But yeah, like Revenge of the Fallen, I think it's watchable. Like Ken said, it's the perfect watch it and forget it movie. And it's not the most egregious thing in the world. Like I said, not a big fan of what they did with Skids and Mudflap. It was a little racist. And there's a reason why they were cut out of Dark of the Moon, although I can talk about that in just a minute. So Dark of the Moon, long story short, Ken, you try to summarize this one.
Basically Sentinel Prime comes down to Earth and goes, yo, we gotta do MacGuffin thing. And then Sentinel Prime's like, psych, I'm evil. Like,
tricked you, bitch.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I can sum it up a little with just a touch more detail.
All right, go for it.
Okay, so the third film takes place 2 years after Egypt. The Autobots discover that the 1986 Chernobyl disaster was caused by Russian scientists experimenting on a Transformers fuel cell from the Ark, which is actually what kicked off the space race in the first place. And like Ken said, they find Sentinel Prime, who is voiced by Live Long and Prosper, Mr. Spock himself, Leonard Nimoy. Turns out
he did a great job.
Oh yeah, no, it just at this point he's got his voice is fully absorbed that I give no fucks quality of being an old man. He turns on the Autobots, shoots Ironhide full of cosmic rust, and then tries to create a space bridge that's going to bring Cybertron into Earth's orbit so they can take over the planet and use that to rebuild their world. And by the end of it, Optimus goes full John Wick, Denzel in the Equalizer movies, where he just annihilates Sentinel Prime and straight up Mortal Kombat 1 Sub-Zero fatalities Megatron.
Yeah.
He was killed in the first one. They resurrect him with a piece of the Allspark in the second one, only for him to have one of the jankiest alt forms in Transformers history, and then just killed you, bitch.
Just gets murked.
Oh god, in the most disrespectful way possible. Although not my favorite death in the movie. That would be the human villain played by McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy, who gets bitch kicked into one of the transportation pillars and is electrocuted.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, but the most disrespectful death in this movie is where you have this guy called Brains, a.k.a. Wheeljack, who looks like a...
Not my Wheeljack.
Yeah, who looks like some sort of animatronic Albert Einstein without the skin. It's honestly kind of horrifying to look at. He gives some human-sized Transformer weapons to the Nest members and Spike, or Sam, or Shia the Beef, whatever, who Sam takes out Starscream. That marinate for a moment. The most screamiest, cringiest human in this movie, and that's saying something, somehow manages to shank Starscream in the eye and take out the most traitorous Decepticon of all time. I am insulted by your writing, writers. Die in fire. I'm sorry. God, this pisses me off so much.
Yeah, like that's a death that character didn't feel earned. I felt like Sam should have maybe had another crack at maybe Megatron since she did kill him in the first movie. If he helped Optimus during that fight, I would have been more okay with that than Starscream being killed by Sam. That feels like maybe Lennox should have killed Starscream because
Either
he's part
Lennox
of Nest.
or
Tyrese Gibson's character, maybe.
You know what? As much as I loved those two, would have been the most. But I would have loved it if John Turturro's Agent Simmons.
Yes,
Mentioned these. He's the guy. He's this nerd with just a taste of power in the first movie who runs Sector 7, which is the most thinly veiled reference to a covert anti-terrorist squad I have ever seen in movies, because clearly they were trying to set this up for G.I. Joe. But he's this guy, he's a recurring character in these first three movies. You know, he's the one that calls in the railgun strike on the enemy's scrotum on top of the pyramids in the second movie. And I think it would have been a nice, you know, fare thee well to the character, because he's written out of the film after this. But yeah, I think Agent Simmons should have gotten the kill shot on that. It's just, I realize I'm an adult. It's been years. The movie can't hurt me anymore. It's just, of all the death, and there are some gnarly deaths amongst the Transformers. Like, I love how I was going to say Wolverine, Bumblebee uppercut, one shots, phaser cannon takes off. Like, was that was Soundwave? He basically decapitates Soundwave with an uppercut gunshot. Optimus goes to town on Shockwave in this movie, and it was beautiful. But there's something we have to talk about, and it's specifically, and this triggered that. So, Optimus Prime in the first movie, noble, regal, only kills when he really has to. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit kind of brutal, specifically looking at the Bone Crusher death. Mm-hmm. But Optimus gets progressively worse as these movies go on. And specifically, when you think about in number 2, he kills the Fallen by saying, "Give me your face." And then in I Rise, you fall, as he stabs him from behind in a move that I can only describe as Jason Voorheesian.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, you go.
Oh, no, I was about to say, it's like Optimus, he becomes less and less Autobot leader and Autobot war criminal as the movies go on.
Anti-hero, if we're going to be nice about no war criminal, that's the right term.
Well, yeah, because there's a point in number 2 where they're hunting the Decepticons with like Nest forces. The guy who says the Fallen shall rise, Optimus straight up executes him. Yet later on, we see them taking Decepticons into custody in the 5th movie. They have Decepticon prisons. So I guess maybe the technology wasn't there just yet, but still, I was like, that's a little brutal even for Optimus.
And one of the nicest things I can say about this movie is, you get one of my favorite alt forms. Like, I love how we got Soundwave in the second movie, and he's kind of like this technological version of the Blob as he's absorbing and taking over this satellite. And that's really the only time we see him in that. But in this one, he turns into this, was that a Mercedes?
Yeah.
Or no,
or it's like a BMW or something. I don't know.
No, it was Mercedes.
Some expensive car. Yeah.
Yeah. He turns into the Mercedes for, McDreamy's character. I wish I could remember that guy's name.
Aaron or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. Doesn't matter. Not important.
Patrick Dempsey. There we go. But you look at that, and like I said before, like we got so many different voices. Like Jess Harnell, Wacko Warner, Wacko Warner is Ironhide. And you're right, Hugo Weaving did Megatron. For some reason, I thought he opted out after the first movie.
No, he stayed around until the 4th one, and then they take a turn. But go on.
Yeah.
Continue.
James Remar, like Swan from The Warriors. Dexter's dad in that TV series is the voice of Sideswipe, who I don't even remember Sideswipe saying anything in this movie.
Yeah, I think he says 1 or 2 lines. It's so minuscule. He has more lines in Revenge of the Fallen than he does this. And actually, Starscream gets more lines in Revenge of the Fallen than he does in this movie.
Yeah. And you get Wheelie, who, okay, first of all, I love Wheelie in the G1 animated series. He is unfairly hated. Just because you don't like the way somebody speaks does not give you the right to harass and vilify a character like that. But Wheelie in this movie, who turns into like this weird Ghoulies looking RC monster truck transformer who, yeah, like he came in the second one. I forgot he was in that movie until just now. Like that is just, and this movie, again, not the worst one. This one I find less egregious to my mind than the second one for some reason. But maybe because it's more into that, run and gun actiony, the world's coming to an end. If you stop to think about anything for more than 10 seconds, you have literally put more thought into the movie than the writers did.
This one feels more like a G1 movie or like a G1 plot. Like Revenge of the Fallen, very G1 plot-esque. Dark of the Moon, pretty This feels like a season finale to a G1 cartoon season. Like this is the kind of two-parter, so to speak. And by this point in the franchise, Megan Fox has left, so Michaela's character is just written out with a throwaway line like, "Oh, she dumped us because she wouldn't let me be me." I don't believe that was her character development from 2 movies, personally.
Yeah,
Of course not.
But then Sam, he traded up because the girl he's dating in this one,
that's Jason Statham's wife.
I know.
Like, wow.
From the transporters to the transporter, it there's a synergy there. And the best thing about this movie was the plot constantly made me think of the G1 2-parter Countdown to Extinction.
Yes.
Where the Decepticons team up with human villain, Dr. Arkeville, and they mass transport Cybertron into Earth's orbit, and that somehow doesn't completely fuck the world up. At best, there are storms and earthquakes, and that's about it.
Yeah, and this is a plot point we'll revisit again later on in this franchise. Now, I had this thought when there are 2 things that I was thinking while I would do this that would make the movie a little more fan servicey, but it would work in terms of plot. Some of Megatron's goons that chase them on the freeway in this movie, that should have been the Stunticons if you wanted to have a little bit of fan service in there. And and do you guys remember in Revenge of the Fallen where the Fallen has all those little insectile dudes?
Yeah.
Why were those not Insecticons? I'm not saying you had to call them Kickback, Shrapnel, and Bombshell, but again, if you'd had them look like the Insecticons, would have been a nice thing. But here in this movie, I had a slightly different idea for the Battle of Chicago, which is where they're setting up this space bridge to transport Cybertron to Earth. I was thinking, when you see all the Decepticon jets that are flying through the city, anything that was a VTOL, that should have been Dirge, Ramjet, and Thrust. Even if you just threw their names out and not make those ships, but make those individual transformers, I think you could have made the Battle of Chicago a little less generic in some ways and maybe show just how powerful Megatron's forces had swelled, showing there's more named guys.
Like at this point, it was pretty clear Michael Bay gave 0 fucks. And the writers gave 0 fucks about the lore.
Yeah, like it just feels like it was missed opportunity, because I know the guy who wrote Revenge of the Fallen wrote this one and wrote Age of Extinction. So I feel like in some ways the writer wrote the movie and somebody who had a passing knowledge of the franchise was able to put some input in here, because one of the big bads this movie advertised was Shockwave. Shockwave being Megatron's tactical military commander guy. He's one of the most evil Decepticons ever, pretty much. He's the reason why everything sucks in the IDW comics. And here Shockwave roars. And that bothers me because Shockwave doesn't roar. Shockwave he's frigging Spock with a space gun alternate mode. Don't mess with him. And here he turns into this giant drill worm thing and roars. And
I think
No.
that was
I mean,
separate
to be
thing
fair,
start
it's
with.
a Frank Welker roar, but
it's still, and the fact that Corey Burton, the original voice actor for this, said he wouldn't do it. I was like, wow, that says something to me. But like JT, I find this is the least egregious, but it's weird. I like Revenge of the Fallen more than I like this, but I like some of the action in this movie a little bit better.
well, there's actually a reason why the action's better is because Bay shot this for 3D.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
So he realized that I can't edit the way I normally do with 3D because then I'll give people fucking headaches.
Yeah. And
So he slowed down his editing in the action for this movie, and it helps.
yeah, it really does. And the only other and they did something neat with this movie that they didn't do for the rest of the entire franchise. This is the closest we get to G1 accurate Optimus. And you're saying, but Mike, what about Bumblebee? What I mean by that is Optimus gets his trailer in this movie, and he doesn't get it for any other ones. I think maybe not even in Rise of the Beast do you see the trailer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the only one where he gets it. It also turns into his flight pack.
Oh no, he gets the trailer, and he has the trailer in Beasts at points.
At points. Yeah, you're right.
And then when you see him at the end of Bumblebee, and you're talking about the trailer, and he gets the combat pack. That's one I mentioned about Revenge of the Fallen, where Jetfire sacrificed himself, and we get one of the most anime of anime arming
Battleizer
sequences
mode.
where he gets super Optimus mode with all this, and he goes off and he just starts taking it to the Decepticons, and my inner 5-year-old is so happy.
Yeah, I thought that was actually kind of cool how they gave Optimus flight powers. I was a little sad Jetfire had to die for that, but
yeah. And before we move on to the next film, because we got to move on eventually. I was just looking at a quick blurb on the next film, Age of Extinction. It says, for a time, it was the 10th highest grossing movie of all time. Now, in the top 50 films, this is according to the article on Wikipedia, there are only 2 Transformers movies on here. Dark of the Moon is still the highest, adjusted for inflation, is currently holding 31, or position 31 at $1.123 billion. Age of Extinction, the next film we'll talk about, is number 33 with $1.104 billion. None of the other Transformers movies are in the top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
some of them were.
Well, I think specifically is Dark of the Moon was super pushed in China, as well as Age of Extinction.
Yeah, and this is around the time in films, for those that don't know, where because there's a billion people in one country on Earth, Hollywood constantly tries to get movies to play there to, bolster their numbers. See, this was successful. It still could be shit, but we've made money.
Yeah.
So I guess one final thing I'll say about Dark of the Moon, it's the end of the Sam trilogy. I like Sam's journey among all 3 movies. Carly was a nice G1 reference, but she doesn't. I wish they found a way to work with Megan Fox to complete her arc, and just rather than just dropping this damsel in distress character, even though she ends up somehow being able to shit talk Megatron into doing dumb.
It talks Megatron and puts up with Sam's bullshit. That woman is a saint.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'd say of the Sam trilogy, I don't know. It's hard to say which one is worse or which one is better between Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. I found during my rewatch of all three of the Sam movies, the first one's obviously the best. I might actually do 1, 2, 3. I think I like Revenge of the Fallen a little bit more than Dark of the Moon, but I like Dark of the Moon stakes, if that makes any sense.
No,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, like I like the story arc of Revenge of the Fallen, and Dark of the Moon is just meh.
It's basically the Saturday morning cartoon stretched out over 2 hours.
Yeah.
And funny side thought before we move on to Age of Extinction, I realized while I was watching these movies, Josh Duhamel is the Game of the Year edition of Timothy Oliphant. And I don't know, and I don't know how I came to that conclusion, because I'm like, he's like stronger, bigger, muscular, probably smells better than Timothy Oliphant. That's Josh Duhamel.
Ironically, both of them have done Nicholas Sparks films.
See? And then I got to thinking, and I asked this question to Ken, JT, and Alex, like, so who's the collector's edition of Timothy Oliphant? And I think we all agreed it's probably Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
So
Something
he's
like
the
that.
super edition.
Yeah, and all this from a guy that I discovered on that show Las Vegas on NBC in the early 2000s. I was like,
Oh
you've
yeah.
come so far.
So, all right. So we move on to the fourth movie, which is Age of Extinction, which this movie, I remember being very heavily pushed in Chinese markets. Basically, long story short, it is 5 years after the Battle of Chicago. All Autobot relations with the U.S. government have been severed. There's this Black Ops unit called Cemetery Wind, which hunts rogue Decepticons and Autobots.
Led by Fraser himself.
Yeah, led by Kelsey Grammer. And they have killed Ratchet. They've killed a couple other Decepticons and Autobots, and they return them to this group called KSI, which melts them down into their component parts and uses Transformium. That's such a terrible name.
Oh God, my ears are dribbling out my brain right now.
And basically, they're looking. There's this unaligned bounty hunter named Lockdown, who's hunting Optimus on behalf of his employer, which we find out later who that is, kind of. And they want to use this device called the Seed, which is meant to cyberform planets, basically put down Transformium so they can build more Transformers, but KSI wants it so they can build an army of automated drones. And enter Marky Mark, Cade Yeager, as I'm an inventor, which will be
a smart guy from Texas.
Yeah, and he constantly refers to this, but I'm an inventor. And Cade Yeager is the most unlikable of the human protagonists, and not because Marky Mark's not charming. It's just
No. I will say T.J. Miller is the most, and he gets murked hard.
Oh yeah, that was violent how he died. That's another thing. This movie has an unbelievably high body count.
Both
when you
human
think about
and
it.
Transformer, yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, and the okay, Lockdown is a character that first debuted in Transformers Animated that came out, I think, the same year or shortly thereafter the first movie, who's like this unaffiliated former Autobot bounty hunter with a hook for a hand, voiced by Lance Henriksen. How did they not get Lance Henriksen to voice this character?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Please continue.
Because they had Mark Ryan on speed dial.
But yeah, it's like this movie. It feels like they're trying to shove too much in, because when they go to KSI, they discover that they've rebuilt Megatron into Galvatron, which now is voiced by Frank Welker. So we've got the OG Megatron playing the character. So okay, fine, cool. Oh, and Optimus Prime is fixed by Cade Yeager, and now because Marky Mark helped Optimus. Now he's involved. Cemetery Wind's trying to kill him, and shenanigans ensue. And they bring in the Dinobots, but they never name them. You don't get a proper name out of them until last night, and even then it's a blink and you'll miss it line.
Yeah. I didn't get the names until I was looking at the toys, and only because I was fiending after the Grimlock figure, which is honestly one of the best ones. I just couldn't afford it at the time. And you get possibly two of my favorite additions to the Transformers franchise with this, in not just two of my favorite characters, two of my favorite voices for these characters, which is John Goodman as Hound, who is this rotund, bearded, cigar chomping, like think of the character Colonel Matrix, like Schwarzenegger's character from Commando, but as a Transformer. You're almost there. And Ken Watanabe as Drift, who's a triple changer. He turns into a Veyron Vitesse and a Sikorsky Raider helicopter, who is legit my favorite character to come out of the IDW Transformers comics, because he's the only Transformer that fights with blades in the entirety of his existence in that franchise. And I love it. And I mean, they're a little too on the nose with the whole samurai motif, because he literally turns into a robotic samurai. But because it's Ken Watanabe and that voice just oozes class, I'm letting it go.
See, I'm kind of the opposite with Drift, and it's only because I've read the comics on Drift. When I watch Age of Extinction and Dark of the Moon, this is where I really started to kind of notice things. They start injecting things that are meant for deep lore fans. Like the Wreckers are in Dark of the Moon, and they're an Autobot commando unit. Here they bring in Drift, who's this former Decepticon assassin turned Autobot spiritual warrior, as you mentioned, the only guy who fights with blades. In the comics, incredibly deep backstory. So again, this feels like someone who passively read the comics, maybe one.
Yeah, someone who cares, at least.
Yeah, so they put in Drift, great. Hound, I'm actually going to propose a different character, same design. Don't make it Hound. JT, what do you think if we were to replace Hound with Cup?
Good God, yes.
Yeah, because old grizzled warrior, the cigar bit comes right out of the comics.
Hell, John Goodman would still, I don't know if I mentioned that John Goodman voices Hound. At that, I could see him doing that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good pick. And even to go back to Dark of the Moon with the Q character, if you made that character Perceptor, I would have been okay with that. But I digress. Here, this is something I noticed with the script, and it wasn't until literally last night that it came to me. So KSI is building all these drones out of Transformium. They build a version of Bumblebee they call Stinger. When they go to Hong Kong and they have the battle over there with the Dinobots, they're fighting an army of these drones. And I got to thinking, they built a money-saving element into the script, because it means they could reuse the same elements for Stinger multiple times. And I got to thinking, this would have been a great time for Megatron's Galvatron character to introduce other named characters. Like Stinger, like you could have had the Stunticons here. You could have, like, honestly, if that character had been named Breakdown or Dead End or Wild Rider, I think I would have enjoyed that a little bit more than just I'm a Bumblebee in slightly different colors.
I forget what Bumblebee said, because, and this is also these films are where we get the modern thing of Bumblebee not having a voice but speaking through his radio. And I forget what, but he has this great line where he takes Stinger out in the movie that in the theater is just, fuck yes.
Oh yeah, he's like cheap knockoff, and like
that's something like that. Yeah.
I will also say that at the very least, this movie gave us another Stanley Tucci role.
Yeah, and he is pretty funny.
Is loose.
like
I mean, Stanley Tucci is good in literally anything you put him in.
I will say this. This is the movie where it was most clear the humans are the bad guys. They just happen to
Oh,
be
yeah.
being aided by Lockdown. And I thought about this too. On Lockdown ship, they're fighting and they're trying to escape on these cables, and these robotic beasts came out. Now, again, one of the problems I think the Transformers franchise has is when it does generic bots, it doesn't need to. So I'm going to propose this. Either make them Insecticons that could have been, that look like Shrapnel, Bombshell, and Kickback being commanded by Lockdown, or JT, what if they looked like the alt modes of the Predacons and he just calls them Predacons and they chase after them? It's nice, it's slick, and it's fan servicey.
I can fucks with that. Also, the whole idea of these genericons, if you'll allow me, is I think it's a cost saving measure, both in financially and script wise, in that you can have hordes of nameless villains getting murked mercilessly by the Autobots, and we don't feel bad about that. It's something they did in the Transformers Prime animated series, where you have
Viacons,
the Viacons. Right? Yeah, you have the car Viacons and the aerial Viacons, and then eventually they bring in the Insecticons, who look all like these giant I think it's Hercules beetle or rhinoceros beetles that look like they're all on, Transformer steroids because they're all incredibly jacked. But yeah, no, something like that was really good. I mean, the idea of Lockdown capturing the Dinobots, cool. Could we have at least gotten Greg Berger to growl out a few lines as that? Instead, we get this Optimus somehow goes through this trial by combat to win their loyalty. And again, we see the clearly Prime is deep into his Transformers PTSD, like where he knocks down Grimlock and he takes out his sword, because for some reason Prime doesn't use guns in the movie very much. All of a sudden he's got a sword and shield for some reason. Or he just starts using them when they're on Lockdown ship, where he draws the blade near like Grimlock's eye, is like, "You're my bitch now" kind of move. And then he rides Grimlock, who does not transform again in the whole movie. He just rides him like, the Lone Ranger rode Silver into battle, and they take out Lockdown, and then all of a sudden we find out that Optimus has jets in his feet because he takes off into space to find their creators, and he's going to whoop their ass, leading us into The Last Night.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little amazing how quickly this movie ends. Optimus Prime straight up blows up Frasier. And that's something else. Ken kind of mentioned this earlier with TJ Miller gets killed by Lockdown, and he dies in a very violent way. This movie has people being straight up vaporized at times, and I was actually very surprised. Same with Dark of the Moon. Just how many human casualties are starting to add up in these movies, and Optimus getting progressively more and more violent, and that's.
I distinctly remember when I saw Age of Extinction in theaters, and some of the stuff that TJ Miller was doing came out before the movie came out, and seeing him,
the nicest human being,
seeing him get brutally murked was both like, holy crap, that was brutal, but also like, it's TJ Miller, so I'm not that annoyed by it, but wow, that was brutal.
Yeah, like he basically gets like, it's like someone poured hot steel all over his body and forever
he gets dropped in liquid metal and then crushed.
Yeah, what was that volcano that exploded thousands of years ago that they're still finding bodies caked in lava today?
Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah.
Thank you. He gets Vesuvius, and then he gets crushed, and and I would never deign to denigrate the great Stanley Tucci. Although his character Joshua Joyce is one of the most obnoxious characters in this film, he didn't annoy me as much as Shane, who's the guy that's dating Marky Mark's daughter in this film.
Yeah, Jack Rayner.
Yeah, his Irish accent seems to come and go, and that just annoyed me on a very primal level for some reason.
There was something I was watching. It might have been on Red Letter Media. It might have been. I'm almost positive it was, where they were talking about going through all the Transformers movies. And for some reason, there's a plot point, and they bring it up multiple times that this is, it's the Romeo and Juliet law. She's 17 and I'm 20. And they overly... Yeah, and they overly sexualize the teenage daughter where she's wearing the Daisy Dukes. It's not until later on she gets actual clothes. And it's weird. Like, there's a few shots in these movies where they seem overly gratuitous or fetishy. Like, there's one shot from Dark of the Moon where Carly's walking with a pair of dogs, and it's just there for no fucking reason. And then this movie, they focus in on this presumably teenage girls behind a little too much. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, sure, I get, for sex appeal, but you've openly stated this girl's a minor. Could we, like, not? And I guess the same with Michaela, but I think you were under the impression at least they're in grade 12 to they're 18, but this one they distinctly say she's 17.
Yeah. The less said about that, the better. I think let's get the last night out of the way, because oh god.
Yeah, Last Night is a confusing mess of a movie, which long story short, King Arthur and the Transformers are somehow connected. The Transformers have been on Earth way, way, way longer, to have been interfering with human history forever with the Order of the Wiccans. Quintessa created the entire... She's one of the original... She's the prime of life, and she created the Transformers. And she turns Optimus into Nemesis Prime, which is such an unfortunate use of that character idea in this movie. It's the movie that... It's so hard to sum because it feels like about 6-7 movies mashed into one. And I found out there was a huge writer's room for this movie, but people kept coming and going from the project. And what we get is there
are 3 credited screenplay writers and 4 credited story writers.
Like, it's a mess, guys. And the best part about this, well, there are 2 best parts about this movie. Sir Anthony Hopkins got to keep a dog who wandered onto set. So good. He's a very good boy. The
dog, not Anthony Hopkins, but I digress.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Marky Mark is more annoying in this movie than anything else. They bring back Lennox and Glenn Mosshauer's character as the Transformers reactionary force, and this one feels very G1 plotty too. And Earth is Unicron, and it's weird, guys. It's so hard to sum up.
That's the Transformers prime plot point, but essentially the plot is the Transformers are still being hunted on Earth. Cade gets swept up by Anthony Hopkins and this character Vivian Wembley, who is a descendant of Merlin, who worked with these ancient Transformers. Merlin played by the Tooch, and that's his only scene in the movie. They have to get this staff and go to Stonehenge, which is actually this buried Cybertronian ship, in order to prevent Quintessa's plot of releasing Unicron from Earth, and around the Earth, his teeth from his anus mouth are popping up all over the world, or at least the 2 horns from his head. I don't know, and frankly don't care. And by the end of it, Bumblebee suddenly repairs his voice and Prime, I'm your friend, and Prime defeats Nemesis Prime through the power of friendship. And then now I think Cybertron's in orbit with Earth or something, because they don't send it back through the space bridge. And Quintessa seemingly killed has survived, and now she's described as this beautiful Arab woman with the jewelry and the veils and all that, and her eyes glow. And so I can tell you exactly what this is to these scientists trying to figure out. And this is where the film franchise ends.
Yeah, pretty much.
Also to be fair, Quintessa's Gemma Chan, so
yeah. But yeah, it's like
1 point in the movie's favor.
Yeah.
I like there are certain characters in this movie that I like, but I think again could have benefited from someone who's a little bit more familiar with the lore. Megatron gets a new not vehicle mode, alt mode or robot form in this, which looks a little more G1-y, where his fusion cannon's actually attached to his arm. Although he randomly has horns on his face now. Like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. Barricade comes back, and they seemingly know who all these Decepticons are now, and there's a Decepticon prison program, which again I thought was actually kind of a neat idea.
Oh, they ripped that off from Suicide Squad. So hard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this movie came out in 2017, so I'm wondering if somebody had seen a Suicide Squad trailer, and this was a very late edition on how to introduce these characters, because that's exactly what it feels like. And they're not the only characters that are significant here are Onslaught, who's another Combaticon, and the other ones are just, they're stupid. Like, you're telling me you couldn't have pulled out a Seeker, you couldn't have pulled out other named Decepticon characters that people care about. Instead we get Nitro, Zeus, and Mohawk. Get bent. And Hot Rod is French for some reason.
Yeah, although they did get Omar Sy. He's a French actor. He was in that really good Lupin series on Netflix, which I highly recommend. And if you can watch it in the French with subtitles, it just makes it better. He voices the Johnny Five robot in this movie, Squeaks, who's this cute little Vespa transformer who, is a friend with Isabella, who's like the kid appeal character in this film, and he can only say Chihuahua because of the damage to his voice box. And honestly, I want that, because at one scene he gets it's this little transformer Johnny Five Vespa bot who gets a full-size Transformers rocket arm strapped to him. And it's just one of the most comically appropriate things you could have done in this movie.
Actually, Omar Sy is the guy who plays Hot Rod. The guy you're thinking of, Squeaks, that's by Reno Wilson.
Yeah, sorry, I know I got those mixed up.
Yeah, but yeah, like, ultimately, I actually really kind of like some of the designs in this movie. Like, Hot Rod, aside from the French thing, and I'm not saying that because I just like French people, because my sister's French, I thought the design was really, really well done. Also, one of the best Transformer toys that's come out in the last 2 years. The Hot Rod Studio Series toy is chef's kiss perfection of a Michael Bay design. I'll just say that. But
I just found the vehicle mode that had his second form was a Lamborghini Centurino.
Yeah, like, it looks
so
sick.
nice.
But yeah, like, Last Night is nonsensical. It's not to say that it's not watchable, because Anthony Hopkins commands every scene that he's in, because it's Anthony Hopkins. Although I'm 90% convinced that half of his dialogue, they're like, okay, here's the gist of what we want you to say. You can make up the rest, and we will make it work. I think he just wanted to be in a Transformers movie. I think the best scene is where he's yelling at the British Prime Minister. He's like, shut up. What did I say? Nope, shut up. It's great. But yeah, ultimately, this is where the franchise ends and then gets rebooted in the final movie we will talk about today is Bumblebee. And this is the best Transformers movie in the franchise. This is the hill that I will die on. I will take no questions at this time.
Oh no, I'll die with you on that hill. Absolutely.
Same.
Yeah, like, I think ultimately the Transformers movies go B, Beasts, 2007, and then it's your order of preference for the last ones. Like, Bumblebee is basically the war on Cybertron has gone badly. The Autobots have to abandon. So you see Ratchet, you see Brawn, Wheeljack, Cliffjumper, Optimus, and the Decepticons overwhelm them. Optimus tells B to go to Earth to hide out. He'll join them later. And eventually these two Decepticon scouts, Shatter and Dropkick, find Bumblebee because he reaches out and signals Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper gets cut in half. The Decepticons come to Earth, ally with an early Sector 7, work with agents. I can't remember what John Cena's character's name is, but they work with him. He gets a really funny line in the movie. He's like, they're literally
the best line in any Transformers movie, period.
Yeah,
it's
he's
in
like
the name.
yeah, like they're Decepticons. That doesn't raise any red flags for you. Like, yeah, like it's great. And Bumblebee feels like they finally figured out, okay, here's how you can translate Michael Bay aesthetics, G1 design principles, but here's how you make the human characters likable. Like, the character of Charlie is not obnoxious. She's like a kid who's just trying to figure her like self out, and the friendship between her and Bumblebee feels very genuine during
and
it.
I will note the writer for this one, she is also the writer of the Birds of Prey movie, and she also is credited for, she's one of the credited writers for the screenplay for The Flash.
Yeah, like it works as a whole, and the director for this was a guy named Travis Knight, and
again, Travis Knight is the founder of Leica, one of the founders.
Oh, Kubo.
Yeah,
Yes.
Kubo, yeah. So he knows how to work with like characters that aren't there. The action in this movie is very easy to follow. The designs for the action make it work great. Like one of the best fight scenes in the franchise is Bumblebee versus Blitzwing. It's a wonderfully kinetic sequence that works. The battle on Cybertron is literally the best 3 to 5 minutes in the entire franchise. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I watch that sequence every so often just for fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like, from moment one, you go, oh, we're in good hands.
Yeah, and like literally that puts so many people at ease. They're like, oh man, but evidently not a lot of people saw Bumblebee, which
there's a couple of reasons. One, it was marketed like ass.
Yes.
Two, many people have said this, I concur. If you had just put Transformers Bumblebee on it, it would have made more money instantly.
Yeah. I mean,
and three, it came out the same weekend as fucking Aquaman.
Yeah.
The best thing about this movie, in my opinion, is it hews so very closely to that Iron Giant aesthetic of depressed kid, teenager finding this alien robot from another planet, and that becomes like the impetus for them to start healing. Because I love like the character progression of Charlie, played by Haley Steinfeld in this movie. How she's depressed because her dad died. She hates her mom for trying to date already. She used to be a competitive swimmer, which actually comes into play. Like, it's Chekhov's extracurricular activity. One of the best gags in the movie, because it's set in was it 87?
Yeah.
And here, music can help you recover your memory. So he pops in a tape in, and Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up starts playing it. B's like, fuck this, and almost takes Charlie's head off when he ejects it. This film was joy.
Yeah.
And the best thing, to harken back to one of my favorite human characters in the original film, was in the original trailer, the first trailer for this, you get the voiceover from Uncle Bobby Bolivia, saying, there's that mystical bond between man and machine. And God, we still miss you, Bernie.
Mm.
But yeah,
another thing that Bumblebee that I really like is this has the original version of Higher Love. I have never, ever heard that in a movie before or since. And Steve Winwood's version of Higher Love is like one of those childhood memory songs.
Quintessential.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this movie takes place in the 80s, so they really had to do the right things with music. And this movie, it leans into the 80s aesthetic where it's not annoying. It's very charming. The music is fantastic. Like they play Stan Bush's The Touch at inappropriate moments.
Right.
It just, everything in this movie works. And this is how a Transformers movie can be done when you hand it to a director who genuinely cares about the source material, a good writer who understands, let's craft a good story and then add the Transformers elements into it. It worked.
To put it into perfect context for listeners, is this Bumblebee does what Stranger Things did correctly, is it threads the needle of 80s nostalgia and thinking back to the salad days of yore, like, things were so much better when you were a kid, that sort of mentality. But it doesn't get, it only gets just a touch saccharine. It doesn't get too saccharine, which I love. Also, one of I'm trying to look at the soundtrack here. Yeah, they used Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, which is probably my favorite needle drop in the movie, with respect to Ken's love for Higher Love, which is a great song, don't get me wrong, but Tears for Fears was my jam as a kid.
Oh yeah, like ultimately, if you're gonna watch one Transformers movie out of any of them, Bumblebee is the one to watch. And then I guess to conclude, Rise of the Beast is in theaters right now. I think it's the second best Transformers movie. If you're a fan of the Beast Wars era of stuff, you'll definitely enjoy it. There is a nice post-credit scenes-ish, I guess, post-credit scene adjacent, where they address it to another major Hasbro property. And
I called it with Bumblebee. I called that shit with Bumblebee.
I figured they were going to do it. I'm glad they are. Now, as long as Rise of the Beast does enough business, hopefully we'll see another Transformers movie in a couple of years. But we're going to kind of close out the show just because, like, looking at the whole of the franchise from 2007 to now, Transformers has come back in such a large way into the culture. Because, like, in the 80s, yes, it was around. In the 90s, Beast Wars was just on the edge of mainstream. I felt like people knew it and liked it, but you say Optimus Prime, and probably your grandparents know who that is now. They might even know Bumblebee. It's just one of those things that's just kind of soaked in. So, like, during this time, we had Transformers animated. The comics were going really strong. We had Transformers Prime, which was a fantastic series. And some of the more surprising things that have come out in the last couple of years, and we've reviewed some of it on the show, and we're going to be playing it at some point before the fall. Hopefully, we're going to be recording the Transformers RPG by Renegade Game Studios. I'm surprised to see how much licensed material has come out of this. Like, I started reading the comics this past winter, and I was genuinely surprised by how much that I felt the Michael Bay movies and the live actions pulled in from the comics. Like I've mentioned, the Wreckers, Drift is in there. The Knights of Iacon from The Last Night, they kind of pulled in there. Cyberforming planets. And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat how the Transformers lore has grown so much more than the original movies. And unless you were watching like the Unicron trilogy in the early 2000s, you were really kind of starved for content unless you read comic books, because even animated, it was popular, but the Michael Bay movies really transformed it into this like juggernaut. And now there's like card games, there's video games. We had the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron. We had Transformers Devastation, which is a wonderful game. Transformers Battlegrounds came out 2 years ago. This year we're getting a video game based on Earthspark, which is another Transformers series that is airing right now.
We got that Reactivate game that's coming out.
Yeah,
Yep.
like they're...
We also have, and just like a few months ago, Paramount announced, hey, we've got animated films coming out that are going to be telling the origin story of Prime and Megatron.
Yeah, and they
Like,
actually
aside
got
from the movies, yeah.
they got Chris Hemsworth voicing, and they've openly said he will become Optimus Prime, but he starts as Orion Pax.
Yeah, we get some Orion Pax with Chris Hemsworth, and then we get probably one of my favorite like up and coming actors playing Megatron, and I'm just gonna make sure I'm saying this man's name correctly, so give me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What was he in?
You would specifically know him from Bullet Train, and he plays the
Lemon?
Lemon, yeah.
Oh, that's such good casting.
So Brian Tyree Henry, he
Yeah.
is playing Megatron.
Awesome. Just to quickly speak about Rise of the Beast myself, my favorite character / voice actor in this movie, surprisingly, was Pete Davidson as Mirage.
Oh,
Oh,
God,
yes.
he stole the show.
He killed it.
He was the best thing. And it's not that I hate him. It's just you see him on SNL all those years, and like he's got this very
Punchable face.
grating. Well, that could be said of a lot of people, but he just has that very grating voice and that slightly obnoxious style of comedy. But it's just he had so much fun as Mirage. Like you could hear it in his performance, and he transforms, which is essentially Jazz's G1 alt form, which I thought was a really cool nod to the franchise history. Specifically, a couple of the other characters, like RC's voiced by Liza Koshy, is this YouTuber that I've been following for years with her funny videos. She did very well, what little we actually heard RC. Peter Dinklage was Scourge in that movie. I found out the other day. I was like, holy shit. Michelle Yeoh did great as Air Razor. I'm sad to see what happened to her character. But the best thing I love is and this is a deep dive, I think this is a deep dive nod, is in the denouement of the movie where the character of Noah gets this exosuit, and I will not say how he gets it because it's a bit of a spoiler for the movie. I thought that was a shout out to the character of Kicker from Transformers Energon.
I can see that, actually.
And the suit almost looks like it. I love how they set up the future of the franchise and the potential crossover with another Hasbro brand. And yeah, the way Transformers has, I wouldn't say it's thrived in the 21st century, because in the late 90s, like after Generation 1 and then the Generation 2 toy line, the short-lived Machine Wars, which really wasn't released that much in North America. We got Beast Wars, and it was really starting to circle to drain. And then we got, R.I.D., the Unicron trilogy, and we're off to the races again. My favorite bit of media, besides the comics in the last 10, 15 years, was Transformers Prime. I really wish they would have got a 4th season out of that.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was a lot more to tell, but the way they ended up, I'm not going to lie, was it Beasts Rising or whatever? Predacron's Rising?
Yeah.
Because of many reasons in my life, I cried at the end of that where Optimus sacrificed himself again. I was, God, not again, Big Bot. And it was legit sadness because, well, nobody stays dead in the Transformers universe because he came back in the sequel series, but that's how core to my person Transformers is.
For me, like, thinking about this, you've got such good memories with some of the TV shows. For me, it's been a lot of the ancillary stuff. Like, I've always loved movies. That's never going to change. For me, it's the toys and it's the things that are adjacent to it. Like, the fact that I'm going to get a chance to play Transformers with you guys with an actual rule set I'm not just making up, that excites me so much, because I never thought in a million years we get a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game, but for Transformers. Never thought it was going to happen. And that's cool. And like, there's even a deck building game that I'm going to review on the show in a couple of weeks that I'm so excited to teach people to play. Like, I get a chance to share my love of Transformers where it's not just me collecting toys. And obviously with Hasbro sending me all of these toys for review now, it's really opened up my eyes to what is possible with this franchise. It's growing beyond just toys now. It's an experience that I can share with you guys in a different way. And that's in your 40s. I find as you get older, you want to find things you can share with your friends. And I know role-playing games have been the hottest thing in the last couple of years with like Critical Role and that whole success. And plus with Terrible Warriors, and we did Stargate last year. Stargate I liked, but I didn't love it as much as I do Transformers. So when we get a chance to play together at some point this year, I'm just really excited to share the love of this universe. And thanks to JT helping me find these books at a really affordable price, I've fallen in love with this franchise again. I haven't felt this much connected to a Transformers property or like the franchise since I was a child. And I'm so excited to discover this now where I have the time, I have the resources, I have the capability to really enjoy it now. So I love it. Ken, what are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, I'm one of those casual fans. Transformers has always been just kind of like, yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Again, Beast Wars was like my series. In fact, I'm pretty sure we still have some of the original figures downstairs in the basement in a Tupper in like a plastic container. I'm pretty sure they're still down there. But yeah, it was there. That was a franchise, like just as an overall franchise, I've always been interested in it. I don't necessarily dive deep into the lore like you guys do, but I still enjoy my time with it.
Like, I think it's a wonderfully accessible franchise. Like the Michael Bay movies, I think scratch an itch where if you want to see, you're not going to find big robot action done better, honestly. Bumblebee is the most accessible for you to get into what we've always wanted. Rise of the Beast is a very worthy follow-up. I mean, if you're going to watch anything, Bumblebee, Beast, the first Transformers movie, and then the other ones you can check out. Last Night is one you could probably safely leave off your list. But ultimately, though, it's a fun franchise. And is it dumb and stupid? Yeah. Does it veer into the goofy? Yes. But I think there's a lot of interesting things here because I think Optimus Prime, at least in some of these movies, is a great idea and role model, especially in Bumblebee and Beasts, where there's one line out of Beasts where they're talking about Optimus is just a guy who wants to protect his family. And that's the Optimus that I know and love. That's the hero. That's the person who understands sacrifices will be made, not give me your face. And even Shia as Sam, I think got a lot of unnecessary hate. I mean, other than the no, that bit, I like him. These movies, I like Megan Fox, and I'm totally fine with that. I think she's a fine actress. I think she got unfairly booted from this franchise. And there's some pretty cool fan service in here when it's done right. So ultimately, guys, like I said, big thanks to Paramount for sending us a copy of the 4K movie set. Hopefully you'll check this out. There's going to be a lot more Transformers content coming here on the show. I have toys to review. Like right now on my desk, I have Beachcomber, Metal Hawk, Dirge, Needle Nose, Petor from Rise of the Beast, and Leo Convoy from Beast Wars the Second.
I'm so jealous about that.
Oh, and I have the Nemesis coming, which is the next Titan class Transformer. So a lot of good stuff to be talking about over the next couple of weeks as we take our vacation. So like I said, likely when you're hearing this will be sometime in July. So we come back on August 7th for our first regular show of the year. It'll be me, Ken, and JT for the month of August as Alex gets that month off to recuperate and fix the Twig kind of back end. And it'll be also me, Aaron, and Enrique, and these two doing Future Imperfects, Loose Cannons, lots of good stuff. More Sunday Funnies coming up. So for This Week in Geeks Combiner Gestalt Extravaganza, we have been
JT from Saskatoon.
Again from this anime.
And I've been Mike the Birdman saying, Autobots, roll out.
With the Allspark gone, we cannot return life to our planet. And fate has yielded its reward. A new world to call home. We live among its people now, hiding in plain sight, but watching over them in secret, waiting, protecting. I have witnessed their capacity for courage, and though we are worlds apart, like us, there's more to them than meets the eye. I am Optimus Prime, and I send this message to any surviving Autobots taking refuge among the stars. We are here. We are waiting.